الثقلين. But this man kuntu mawla is only in day of Qadir. So we are dealing with two concepts, and as long as these concepts are narrated through proper channels, they are enough for us. But when they were said, it's just an extra information that can be helpful for historians, but when he said this, it's enough for proof, as a proof.
Thank you very much, Sheikh.
You're welcome.
This is more on a general question, and there's a few like this. I will be summarizing this question and just giving the gist of it because of time, but I think we should have enough tools to be able to understand this question. And it's regarding words and sayings from different sources attributed to Imam Ali alayhi salam with regards to women, their intellect, some fiqh rulings. How should we understand these hadiths, especially the ones that might be not very easy to understand, at least in terms of how they view women or what they say about women? How should we look at these hadiths? What should we keep in mind when we examine these hadiths?
Yeah, this is a good question, and there are many lectures and papers on this topic by different scholars, but maybe not in English that much, but in Farsi and Arabic, about whether they are all correct or not, or true or not, and if they are, or some of them, what do they mean. For sure, what is important is that in Islamic view, man and woman both are complete in their humanity. They are equally human, because in some traditions, even in some religious traditions, they had different views. But for us, humanity is shared and common and is above gender. So gender is not part of our essence. Gender is outside our essence. Human spirit is not male or female. Although there may be male or female characteristics reflected in the spirit, but the spirit by itself has no gender, according to what Ayatollah Jawadi Amali beautifully says in his book about women as manifestation of beauty and glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is equal humanity in them. There is potential for rising to the highest levels of perfection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no limit here. You can have Lady Mary, you can have Lady Fatima, and even our Imams were looking at Lady Fatima as a role model. Allah introduces Lady Mary as a role model for men and women. So this is the second point. The third point is that in Islam, education is encouraged, useful for education for men and women, because some people think that we should not teach women. Useful education is encouraged for men and women. This is also important. Thinking and being rational and being analytic and trying to gain wisdom is again for both. But then it comes to 2 points. One is about experiences that they may have. If you want to consult a person, you need someone who has some experiences and some knowledge and background that can help. In the time of early Islam, and maybe even up to recent times, many women didn't have that much of experiences and that much of knowledge that they could be good consultants and good players in the social life. Their attention was mostly to certain family issues, for example. But you cannot think like this about, even at that time, about Lady Khadija, for example, a very well experienced lady and full of wisdom, or Lady Fatima or Lady Zainab. So it shows that in the nature of woman there is no problem. But in the upbringing and education system, and the way society defines, sometimes in a very invisible way, the space for them, that was not something very productive for women. But our Islamic idea is that women should become very learned, very educated, very wise, and there is no limit in this. And inshallah, when we come closer to time of Imam Zaman, we have many women who are like that. Another issue is the emotional side. There is something different between men and women. Women are, mashallah, very strong in emotion, and that is beauty of it, and that is a strength of them. But they should be able to learn how to regulate these emotions, and don't let either their love for example, their children, etc., or their dislike, for example, for something, some people make them imbalanced or unjust or responsible in the position. They have to learn and they have to work on this, but they can learn, inshallah. But we should not also expect them to not suffer, and not to, maybe a woman can see difficult scenes and still remain in control, but they will suffer too much. So we should not Islamically expose them to very difficult, dangerous situation and say, okay, you can be like men. Here there is a kind of protective measure. For example, not to go to jihad, for example. They're exempted. Not to undertake big responsibilities. For example, if there are issues that men, as police, as soldiers, can do, and we have enough people, why we should put burden on women? But people think we are depriving them, but it's not about depriving. If I have a garden and I want, for example, my children look after this garden in the night, I would not send my daughter, I would send my son. Not because I don't like my daughter. I like my son, I like my daughter, but I think my son is more fit, and if it's a problem happening, the risk is less. I don't endanger my daughter. So we have to look at it in this way to understand Islamic guidelines about these issues. But I have to say also, when we say that, for example, emotion is strong in women, it doesn't mean that in men it's not strong. Unfortunately, now many men are not also rational, and many men are also becoming too much emotional about these things. But there is a chance for a much more easier emotional judgment in women than men, but training, discipline, practicing can change. But we should not do it in the way that women become empty from emotions or have less emotion, then they are no longer what they are supposed to be. Or if men become too much emotional, again, that's a problem. The balance should be there so that they can supplement each other, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Sheikhna, for helping us through these very important questions. I'll take one more, and that'll be the last for today.
I think this needs more time, but I hope, inshallah, this was okay.
It was very useful and helpful. Inshallah, it can inform us to be better men and women, and believing women and men, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So here we have a question. Assalamu alaikum. As
Alaikum
we begin, alhamdulillah, it's beautiful. I had a question for the QA. What is the best way a student, like for example, a student of Qatar Learning Circle, to fulfill the duty of teaching and spreading the knowledge learned after learning and practicing it?
You know, as soon as we learn something, even one hadith, in addition to using it for our personal benefit, we can share. You learn one hadith, share it with your family, with your friends. But if you want to undertake teaching position, then you have to reach certain level and really understand the subject. You can do justice to the subject and make sure that you are not taking this position from someone who is more qualified. If there is someone who is more qualified and is able and available and willing, I should not take this position. I should always try to give this position to one who is more qualified, can do better the job. But if there are vacancies or people who are more qualified are very busy, or I don't know, they're not available, they have no interest, and I can do justice, I will volunteer myself, I will make myself available. It's a great honor. We should not let any vacant positions for teaching in the community. And if I'm not able to do justice, I should qualify myself, I should work. And it's good if someone who knows me and has knowledge would tell me that you are able now to teach, or you can teach this subject, not that subject. We have this beautiful sunnah kind of tradition that our teachers and our like mentors tell us that now you can do this, now you can go to this stage, now you can do this, because they have experience and they see many things that we don't see. Sometimes we see we are not qualified, they say no, you can do it. Sometimes someone thinks he's qualified, they say no, it's SDLD for you. But don't be hesitant in undertaking teaching position just because you feel embarrassed or you feel too much, responsible. No. When objectively, and this can be verified by a wise, teacher or member of community, that you have reached that point, make yourself available.